The bottle rolled across the kitchen floor, its label catching the light from the chandelier above. My sister, Sophia, lunged for it with a speed that didn't match someone supposedly battling stage 3 leukemia. Her perfectly manicured nails scraped against the tile as she snatched it up and tucked it into her designer handbag. "Just my vitamins," she said with a laugh, her voice carrying that sweet practice tone that always seemed to hypnotize our parents. "I'm Clara, a 30-year-old high school teacher, and that was the moment I should have known something wasn't right. But instead I brushed it off, just like I always did when it came to Sophia. You know how forgetful I can be with these things," she added, flashing her signature smile. Our mom, Linda, hushed over, placing a hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Sweetheart, you need to be more careful with your medications, especially now." Her voice cracked on the last word. We were gathered for a weekly family dinner, but tonight was different. Sophia had called earlier, insisting that everyone needed to be present for an important announcement. Now, here we sat, our plates of Mom's lasagna growing cold as Sophia dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "I don't know how to say this," she began, her lower lip trembling. "I've been keeping something from all of you for the past few weeks." Dad, Robert, reached across the table, taking her hand. "Whatever it is, sweetheart, we're here for you." I watched as Sophia's eyes welled up with tears. She'd always been the family darling, our father's little princess, while I was the reliable older sister who could handle herself. Years of playing second fiddle had taught me to read Sophia's performances like a well-worn script. "The doctors found something," she whispered, her voice breaking at just the right moment. "It's leukemia, stage 3. Mom's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the table. Red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood. Dad's face went pale. "Oh God, no," Mom sobbed, pulling Sophia into her arms. "Not my baby." I sat there frozen as the scene unfolded. Sophia detailed her supposed diagnosis, her voice breaking in all the right places. She mentioned treatments she couldn't afford, specialist appointments that were stretching her finances thin. "I didn't want to worry anyone," she sniffled, "but I can't do this alone anymore." "You won't have to," Dad declared, his voice firm despite his trembling hands. "We'll remortgage the house if we have to. Whatever you need." Finally, I found my voice. "Which hospital are you being treated at?" Sophia's eyes met mine for just a second. Something flickered there, something that made my stomach twist. "Memorial," she replied smoothly. "Dr. Harrison is my oncologist. He's been amazing. My best friend Mia worked at Memorial. I'd never heard her mention a Dr. Harrison in oncology. We should all go with you to your next appointment," I suggested, keeping my tone gentle. "For support." Sophia's smile tightened slightly. "Oh, I wouldn't want to overwhelm everyone. Besides, the treatments, they're not pretty. I wouldn't want you to see me like that." "Clara," Mom cut in sharply, "stop interrogating your sister. Can't you see she's been through enough?" I fell silent, watching as my parents fussed over Sophia. They were already discussing financial arrangements, talking about liquidating their retirement accounts. Sophia sat there, accepting their devotion with practiced grace, occasionally wiping away a perfectly timed tear. Later that night, as I helped Mom clean up, I noticed Sophia's vitamin bottle had fallen out of her bag again. This time I managed to catch a glimpse of the label before she snatched it away. It was empty, completely empty. And the label was partially torn off, showing only a fragment of text that didn't look anything like a prescription. "Everything okay?" Sophia asked, her voice honey-sweet, but her eyes sharp as daggers. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "Everything's fine." But as I drove home that night, the empty pill bottle and the name Dr. Harrison kept circling in my mind. Something wasn't adding up, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what it was. The next morning, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in my chest. Sophia's story didn't add up, and the more I thought about it, the more the inconsistencies gnawed at me. I needed answers, but I couldn't confront her without proof. That's when I called Mia, my best friend and a nurse at Memorial Hospital. If anyone could help me figure this out, it was her. "Hey, Mia," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Quick question. Do you know a Dr. Harrison in oncology?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Dr. Harrison? No, I don't think we have anyone by that name. Why?" My stomach dropped. It's nothing. Just something Sophia mentioned." Mia's tone shifted, her voice now tinged with concern. "Clara, is everything okay?" I hesitated. "I don't know. She told us last night that she has stage 3 leukemia, but something about it doesn't feel right." Mia was silent for a moment. "Clara, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but if you're suspicious, you need to look into this. Cancer is serious, and if she's lying—" "I know," I interrupted, my voice tight. "I just don't know where to start." "Start with the basics," Mia said firmly. "What medications is she taking? What's her treatment schedule? If she's being vague, that's a red flag." I thanked Mia and hung up, my mind racing. Sophia had always been good at dodging questions, but now I was determined to get answers. That evening, I scrolled through Sophia's social media, looking for anything that might confirm or disprove her story. Her Instagram was filled with posts of her smiling at high-end boutiques, showing off new designer bags and dining at expensive restaurants. One post caught my eye, a photo of Sophia at a luxury spa, captioned, "Self-care is so important during tough times. Stay strong, fight." It had been posted just 2 days ago. I stared at the screen, my frustration mounting. How could she afford all of this if she was supposedly drowning in medical bills? And more importantly, how could she have the energy for shopping sprees and spa days if she was undergoing aggressive cancer treatments? My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was a text from Mia. "Checked with oncology. No Dr. Harrison. No record of a patient named Sophia Bennett being treated for leukemia. Call me." My heart sank. I called Mia immediately. "There's no record of her at Memorial," Mia said as soon as she picked up. "Not under her name, not under any alias. Clara, I don't think she's telling the truth." I felt a wave of anger and disbelief wash over me. But why would she lie about something like this? Who does that? "People lie for all kinds of reasons," Mia said gently. "But if she's lying, you need to stop her before she does more damage. Your parents are talking about remortgaging their house, right?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, they're already pulling money from their retirement fund." "Hultkavile lesilis nepra, Abdul Ditian Galib Jarok Wenjutilian Shermagre, Mahatarav Tireorusuni." "Please, lad." "Then you need proof," Leah said. "Real, undeniable proof." The next day, I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of Sophia's social media posts, highlighting the ones that contradicted her claims of being sick. I saved photos of her shopping hauls, spa visits, and restaurant check-ins. I also started paying closer attention to her behavior. Every time she mentioned her treatments, she was vague, changing the subject whenever I asked for details. When I asked about her medications, she claimed she didn't want to burden us with the specifics. Red flag after red flag. Then I got a text from Sophie, a mutual friend from college. "Hey, weird question. Is Sophia really sick? Just saw her at the mall and she looked fine. No wig, no signs of chemo. Just curious." I showed the text to Mia the next time we met for coffee. She leaned forward, her nurse instincts kicking in. "Clara, cancer patients on aggressive treatment for stage 3 leukemia don't usually go on shopping sprees. The fatigue alone would make it impossible." "Maybe she's just trying to stay positive," I said weakly, even though I didn't believe it myself. Mia gave me a look. "You don't really believe that, do you?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "No, I don't." "But how do I prove it? She's so good at manipulating people. My parents won't believe me unless I have something concrete." Mia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then we'll get something concrete. My brother Ethan is a private investigator. He can help. That night, I got a text from Sophia. Hey, sis, can you come with me to my appointment tomorrow? Could really use the support. I stared at the message, my mind racing. Was this a trap? Did she suspect I was on to her? I showed the text to Mia, who raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing, almost like she knows we're talking about her. Should I go? I asked. Absolutely, Mia said, her eyes gleaming. But first, let's get you wired up. If she's lying, let's catch her in the act. The next morning, I met Ethan, who handed me a small recording device. Just keep this in your pocket, he said. It'll pick up everything, and whatever you do, don't let her know you're suspicious. I nodded, my hands shaking slightly as I tucked the device into my jacket. As I drove to pick up Sophia, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Sophia slid into the passenger seat of my car, her designer handbag perched delicately on her lap. She looked radiant, her makeup flawless, her hair styled in loose waves. Not exactly what you'd expect from someone supposedly battling stage 3 leukemia. Thanks for coming with me, she said, flashing me her signature smile. It means a lot. Of course, I replied, forcing a smile of my own. The small recording device in my jacket pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. As I pulled out of the driveway, I tried to keep the conversation light. So, how's Dr. Harrison? He must be keeping you pretty busy with all those treatments. Sophia hesitated for just a fraction of a second before answering. Oh, he's great. Really supportive. I'm lucky to have him. I nodded, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. Turn here, Sophia said suddenly, pointing to a side street. This isn't the way to Memorial, I said, frowning. I know, she replied breezily. I just need to make a quick stop first. Won't take long. I followed her directions, my stomach twisting into knots. We pulled up in front of a luxury boutique, and Sophia practically bounced out of the car, her handbag swinging as she walked. Come on, she called over her shoulder. They're holding something for me. I followed her into the store, my unease growing with every step. Sophia made a beeline for the handbag section, where a sales associate greeted her by name. Miss Bennett, your special order just arrived, the associate said, pulling out a sleek, limited edition designer bag. Sophia clapped her hands together, her face lighting up. It's perfect! I stood there, frozen, as she examined the bag with more care than I'd ever seen her give anything else. I'll take it, she said, pulling out her wallet. The sales associate glanced at me. Will your sister be getting one too? We only have 3 left. Sophia laughed, waving a hand dismissively. Oh, Claire's not into designer things. She's more practical. I felt my face flush with anger, but I bit my tongue. This wasn't the time to confront her. As we walked back to the car, I couldn't hold back any longer. Sophia, maybe we should hold off on the shopping, with all your medical expenses? She froze for a split second before recovering. Don't worry about that. I've been saving up. From where? I asked before I could stop myself. You said you had to quit your job because of the treatments. Sophia's smile tightened. Why are you being like this? I thought you were here to support me, not interrogate me. I am supporting you, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Before I could finish, Sophia's phone connected to my car's Bluetooth. A voice filled the speakers, cutting me off mid-sentence. Hey, Sophia, got your message about the fake doctor's notes? Don't worry, I can have those ready by tomorrow, usual rate. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Sophia lunged for her phone, disconnecting it from the Bluetooth, but the damage was done. That wasn't what it sounded like, she said quickly, her voice high-pitched and defensive. Then what was it? I asked, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. It's for work, she stammered. A project I'm consulting on. You quit your job, remember? I said, my voice cold. Because of the cancer treatments, you're apparently skipping to go shopping. Sophia's face changed in an instant. The vulnerable, sweet sister act dropped away, replaced by something harder, colder. Pull over, she said sharply. Wait, pull over, Clara, or I swear I'll tell Mom and Dad you physically threatened me. We both know who they'll believe. I pulled into a nearby parking lot, my hands shaking. Sophia gathered her shopping bags and turned to me with that same sweet smile that had fooled our parents for years. I know what you're doing, she said softly. Following me, asking all these questions, getting your little nurse friend to snoop around. Stop it, you're only going to hurt yourself. You're stealing from our parents, I said, my voice trembling with anger. I'm accepting help from my loving family during a difficult time, she replied smoothly. Don't make me destroy you, Clara. We both know I can. They remortgaged their house for you, I said, my voice breaking. And they did it gladly, Sophia shot back, her tone icy. Because unlike you, I know how to make people love me. Don't forget that. She stepped out of the car, her new designer bag swinging from her arm. As I watched her walk away, my phone buzzed with a family group text from Sophia. Had to cut my appointment short today. The side effects were too much. But blessed to have my big sister with me for support. Love you all. The responses flooded in immediately. Mom, my brave girls. Dad, so proud of you both. I stared at the messages, the recording device in my pocket feeling heavier than ever. Sophia had just shown her true colors, but I was the only one who'd seen them. Now I had to prove it to everyone else before she drained our parents dry. I sat in my car for what felt like hours after Sophia walked away, replaying the Bluetooth message in my head. The voice, the words, the casual mention of fake doctor's notes. It was all the proof I needed to know that my suspicions were right. But knowing the truth and proving it to my family were two very different things. Sophia had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. If I went to my parents with nothing but accusations, they'd never believe me. I needed undeniable evidence, something so concrete that even Sophia couldn't talk her way out of it. That night, I called Mia and told her everything. She threatened you, Mia asked, her voice sharp with anger. Not directly, I said, though the memory of Sophia's cold smile still sent a chill down my spine. But she made it clear that she'd turn my parents against me if I kept digging. Mia was quiet for a moment. Clara, this is bigger than just your family. If she's forging medical documents, she could be scamming other people too. We need to stop her. I know, I said, my voice trembling. But how? Leave that to me, Mia said. I'll talk to my brother Ethan. He's a private investigator. He can help us get the proof we need. The next day, I met Ethan at a small cafe downtown. He was tall and serious, with the kind of calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease. I've dealt with cases like this before, he said after I explained the situation. Medical fraud, family manipulation, it's more common than you'd think. But if your sister's as good at lying as you say, we'll need to be thorough. He handed me a small notebook. Start documenting everything. Dates, times, conversations, anything that seems suspicious. And I'll start digging into her financial records and medical claims. I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope for the first time in days. Over the next week, Ethan and I worked together to build a case against Sophia. He uncovered bank statements showing large cash withdrawals from my parents' accounts, as well as loans Sophia had taken out using forged medical documents. Meanwhile, I continued documenting her behavior. Social media posts, photos of her at luxury spas and high-end restaurants, often captioned with hashtags like fighter and stay strong. Conversations. Every time I asked about her treatments, she'd dodge the question or change the subject. Inconsistencies. She claimed to be too weak to attend family events, yet she had the energy for shopping sprees and weekend getaways. Mia also played a crucial role. She introduced me to Dr. Lewis, a respected oncologist at Memorial Hospital. When I showed him the medical documents Sophia had provided to our parents, he immediately spotted the forgeries. These aren't even close to real, Dr. Lewis said, shaking his head. The formatting is wrong, the terminology is outdated, and the signature doesn't match any licensed oncologist in the state. He agreed to attend a family meeting to help expose Sophia's lies. The day of the meeting, I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. My parents, Linda and Robert, were seated in the living room, their faces lined with worry. Sophia sat between them, looking pale and fragile in a way that I knew was entirely calculated. "What's this about, Clara?" Mom asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. I took a deep breath, clutching the folder of evidence in my hands. "It's about Sophia. And the truth." Sophia's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. "I know you've been helping her financially," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "And I know you've done it because you believe she's sick, but the truth is, she's not." Mom gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "How dare you?" "Let me finish," I said quickly, opening the folder. "I've been investigating this for weeks. I didn't want to believe it either, but the evidence is undeniable." I laid out everything. The forged medical documents, which Dr. Lewis confirmed were fake. The bank statements showing how Sophia had been using their money to fund her lavish lifestyle. The Bluetooth recording of the message about the fake doctor's notes. As I spoke, Sophia's face went from pale to red, her hands clenched into fists. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You're just jealous because Mom and Dad care about me more than you. You've always been jealous." "This isn't about jealousy," I said, my voice steady now. "It's about the truth. And the truth is, you've been lying to all of us." Dr. Lewis stepped forward, holding up the forged documents. "I'm an oncologist at Memorial Hospital," he said calmly. "These documents are not real, and there's no record of Sophia Bennett ever being treated for leukemia at our facility." Mom looked at Sophia, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Sophia, is this true?" Sophia's lips trembled, but she didn't answer. "Answer her," Dad shouted, his voice shaking with anger. Finally, Sophia broke. "Fine," she screamed, tears streaming down her face. "It's true, okay? I lied, but I didn't have a choice. I needed the money." For what?" Mom whispered, her voice barely audible. "To survive," Sophia sobbed. "Do you know how hard it is to keep up appearances, to live the life people expect from me? I couldn't do it anymore. I needed help, and I knew you'd never say no if you thought I was dying." The room fell silent, the weight of her confession hanging heavy in the air. "You used us," Dad said finally, his voice filled with pain. "You used our love for you to steal from us." Sophia buried her face in her hands, but no one moved to comfort her. The fallout was immediate. My parents were devastated, not just by the financial loss, but by the betrayal. Sophia tried to apologize, but it was too late. Ethan helped my parents file a police report, and Sophia was charged with fraud and forgery. Watching her being led away in handcuffs was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I knew it was the right thing. For the first time in years, the truth was out. The courtroom was cold and sterile, the kind of place where emotions felt out of place, yet they hung heavy in the air. I sat in the back row, my parents on either side of me, their faces pale and drawn. Sophia sat at the defendant's table, her once polished appearance now replaced by a tired, disheveled look. For the first time in her life, she didn't seem in control. The charges against her were serious: fraud, forgery, and theft by deception. The prosecution had built a strong case thanks to the evidence Ethan and I had gathered. The forged medical documents, the financial records, and even the Bluetooth recording were all presented in court. Sophia's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim of her own circumstances, claiming she had a shopping addiction and mental health issues that drove her to make poor decisions. She was desperate, the lawyer argued. She felt trapped by societal expectations and turned to deception as a way to cope. This isn't the work of a criminal mastermind. It's the cry for help of a deeply troubled young woman. I clenched my fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. A cry for help? She had stolen tens of thousands of dollars from our parents, lied to everyone who loved her, and manipulated us into believing she was dying. This wasn't desperation. It was calculated, deliberate deceit. The prosecution didn't hold back. "Your Honor," the prosecutor began, addressing the judge, "this is not a case of someone making a mistake out of desperation. This is a case of premeditated fraud. The defendant forged medical documents, fabricated a cancer diagnosis, and exploited her family's love and trust to fund a lavish lifestyle. She didn't just hurt her parents financially, she shattered their emotional well-being. This was not a cry for help, this was a crime." The most gut-wrenching part of the trial was the victim impact statements. My mom, Linda, was the first to speak. She stood at the podium, clutching a tissue in one hand and a crumpled piece of paper in the other. "Sophia," she began, her voice trembling, "you are my baby, my youngest. I would have done anything for you, and I did. I gave you everything I had because I believed you were fighting for your life. But you weren't fighting cancer. You were fighting to keep up appearances. And in the process, you destroyed our family." Tears streamed down her face as she continued. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you without feeling this pain. You didn't just take our money. You took our love and twisted it into something ugly." My dad, Robert, spoke next. His voice was steadier, but the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. "I worked my whole life to provide for my family," he said. "I saved every penny I could so that your mother and I could retire comfortably, and in a matter of months you took it all. You didn't just steal our money, you stole our future. And for what? A designer handbag? A spa day? I don't understand how you could do this to us." When it was my turn to speak, I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to say anything. What was the point? Sophia had already admitted to everything. But as I looked at her, sitting there with her head bowed, I realized I needed to say my piece, not for her, but for me. I stood up and walked to the podium, my heart pounding in my chest. "Sophia," I began, my voice shaking slightly, "you've always been the star of the family, the one everyone adored. And I was okay with that because I thought you deserved it. But now I see that you used that adoration as a weapon. You used it to manipulate us, to take from us, to hurt us." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "You didn't just betray Mom and Dad. You betrayed me. You made me doubt myself, doubt my instincts, doubt my own family. And I don't know if I can ever forgive you for that." I turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I don't want to see my sister go to prison, but I also don't want her to walk away from this without consequences. She needs to understand the damage she's done, not just to our family, but to herself. I hope this court can help her see that." In the end, the judge handed down a sentence that felt both fair and devastating. Sophia was sentenced to 8 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 5. She was also ordered to pay restitution to my parents, though we all knew it would take years, if not decades, for her to repay what she had stolen. As the bailiff led her away, Sophia turned to look at us one last time. Her eyes were filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were tears of regret or self. The aftermath of the trial was a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. My parents and I were finally free from Sophia's lies, but the cost of that freedom was almost too much to bear. Mom cried herself to sleep for weeks, mourning the daughter she thought she knew. Dad threw himself into work, trying to rebuild their finances, and I tried to pick up the pieces of my own life, knowing that things would never be the same. But even in the midst of all the pain, there was a sense of closure. The truth was out, and Sophia was finally being held accountable for her actions. The weeks after the trial were some of the hardest of my life. The house felt quieter, heavier, like the air itself was weighed down by everything we'd been through. My parents and I were still reeling from the betrayal, each of us trying to process it in our own way. Mom, Linda, spent most of her time in the garden. She said it helped her clear her mind, but I often caught her staring off into the distance, her hands still in the soil. Dad, Robert, threw himself into work, taking on extra hours to try to rebuild what they'd lost. And me? I felt like I was stuck in limbo. I'd done what I set out to do. I'd exposed Sophia's lies and protected my parents from further harm, but the victory felt hollow. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt... One day, as I was cleaning out some old boxes in the attic, I came across a photo album. It was filled with pictures of Sophia and me as kids. Birthday parties, family vacations, Christmas mornings. In every photo, she was smiling, her eyes bright with mischief and joy. I sat there for hours, flipping through the pages, trying to reconcile the little girl in those photos with the woman who had torn our family apart. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. The return address was the prison where Sophia was being held. I stared at the envelope for a long time before finally opening it. "Clara," the letter began, "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, and I don't blame you if you don't, but I need you to know that I'm sorry for everything, for lying, for stealing, for hurting you and Mom and Dad. I don't expect you to believe me, but I'm trying to change. I'm in therapy now, and for the first time, I'm starting to understand why I did the things I did. It doesn't excuse them, but I hope it's a start. I hope one day we can talk." I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to crumple the letter and throw it away, but another part of me, the part that still remembered the little girl in those photos, wanted to believe her. In the months that followed, I started channeling my pain into something productive. With the help of Mia and Dr. Lewis, I launched a small organization dedicated to raising awareness about medical fraud. We held workshops, created online resources, and even partnered with local hospitals to educate families about how to spot scams. It wasn't just about Sophia anymore, I realized, that there were so many people out there who had been hurt by similar lies, and I wanted to help them avoid the pain my family had gone through. My parents eventually joined me in the effort. Mom started speaking at our events, sharing her story with other families. Dad helped with the financial side of things, using his experience to guide people who had been scammed. Slowly but surely, we began to heal. A year after the trial, I decided to visit Sophia in prison. I didn't know what I was hoping to accomplish. A closure, maybe, or just a chance to see if she really had changed. When I walked into the visitation room, I barely recognized her. She looked thinner, older, and there was a sadness in her eyes that I'd never seen before. "Clara," she said, her voice trembling. I sat down across from her, my heart pounding. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why did you do it?" She looked down at her hands, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know," she said. "I was selfish. I wanted more and I didn't care who I hurt to get it. But I'm trying to be better now, I swear I am." I didn't know if I believed her, but I nodded anyway. "I hope you are," I said, "for your sake." As I walked out of the prison that day, I felt lighter somehow. I didn't forgive Sophia, not yet, maybe not ever, but I realized that forgiveness wasn't the point. The point was moving forward, rebuilding my life and my family's life, one step at a time. And that's exactly what we did.